Itai Dzamara was a Zimbabwean journalist who had the courage to stand up to the oppressive regime of Robert Mugabe. He is most well known for the movement Occupy Unity Square that he founded and started, where he invited the citizenry of Zimbabwe to join him in occupying the central square in town and calling for Mugabe's resignation. However, his movement did not last long and came to an abrupt end when he was abducted on the 15th of March 2015. He has not been seen since, and no one knows exactly who abducted him. But we can take an intelligent guess, as we've all seen this movie before. Now, because no one knows exactly where Itai Dzamara is, people presume him dead, but we cannot point to a body or to a way he died. His cause and his legacy remain very much in limbo. We cannot point to a body or to the way he died, and so we cannot canonize him as a martyr for the cause of justice in Zimbabwe. Those who saw him die were probably very few and will take the secret of how it went down with them to their graves. Itai Dzamara did not expect to die at the young age of 37. He did not expect that his stand against justice would bring him to this end. Jesus, in a way, is very similar. He did not expect to die at the young age of 33. Now, some people make the mistake of thinking that Jesus knew that he was going to die. They think that just before he came down to earth, his father called him into his office and said, "Sit down, sonny, I'm going to tell you how this is going to go down. You're going to go down to earth and you're going to become wildly popular at first as people appreciate your miracles and power. But don't let it get to your head, sonny, because you're going to die a horrible death on the cross. But don't worry, after 3 days, I will raise you up." Just didn't happen like that. Jesus, like any other human being like us, did not come down to earth with a preset calendar of how his life would be like. However, like Itai Dzamara, his death did come on the heels of him going into a head-on confrontation with the religious and political authorities of his day. However, unlike Itai Dzamara, Jesus saw his death coming, and he ensured that his movement, the movement that he had started with his disciples, would continue, because he made plans to ensure that he would be able to invest his death and his life with a meaning, not with the meaning that his captives and oppressors would give it. Theodore Adorno says that it is the mark of authoritarian regimes to deny their victims the chance to show and exhibit their suffering. Jesus did not let this happen to him. Jesus knew that he wanted to go out with a bang, not with a whimper. Jesus didn't do things in half measures, and he knew if he was going to be killed, he wanted it to happen on his own terms, in a way that he could give meaning to it. Jesus was very deliberate in the time that he chose to go to Jerusalem. He knew that Jerusalem would be at its most volatile at the time of the Passover, with the thousands, hundreds of thousands that pilgrims who would flock to Jerusalem for this great feast, swelling Jerusalem to 3 times the size of its normal population. At this time, Jerusalem was like a powder keg. It was tinder. The slightest spark would set off a huge explosion and lead to open riots and open revolt. The Jewish authorities and Roman authorities knew this, and they were on high alert during the time of Passover. Jesus knew this as well, and by entering Jerusalem, riding on a donkey, being proclaimed as the son of David, this was his most overt claim to messiahship, and by doing so, Jesus didn't just light a spark. He poured oil over the tinder, and then threw in 2 sticks of dynamite for good measure, that it would all light up in a huge big explosion. And so the scene was set, this huge confrontation. This wasn't just a lone journalist like Itai Dzamara against a huge big juggernaut of an oppressive authoritarian regime. Rather, this was a powerful prophet, mighty in word and deed, who had power over the elements, could command the waters and the wind, could feed the hungry, cast out evil demons and heal the sick. This was a mighty prophet against the Jewish and Roman authorities. It was set for a crackerjacker fight. Everybody was on tenterhooks, waiting to see what would happen. No one could know who the winner was, but everybody knew it was going to be a good fight. And yet, in the end, there was no explosion. And if this had been a theater or a movie, people would have demanded their money back. Because the mighty prophet didn't put up a fight. He just accepted everything passively. This is one version of the story, and maybe the version that most people went home with on that fateful day on Good Friday, disappointed that they had not been entertained in the way they wanted to be. But there was one character. He is the one character in Mark, the Gospel of Mark that we have heard, who actually is the first to proclaim Jesus' true identity. It's the Roman centurion, who looks on Jesus on the cross as he died and says, truly this was the Son of God. This was not because he had seen the resurrection, it hadn't happened yet. The centurion was able to come to this conclusion because he saw the true explosion. There was an explosion, the explosion of Jesus' love. This is the way Jesus gives meaning to his death. At the Last Supper, he voluntarily tells his disciples that I am giving my life for you. The cross is not coming to me, I am going to the cross. And I am embracing it lovingly. And the Roman centurion who saw the way that Jesus died, saw this love, was convinced by the way he died that he was the Son of God. A good image for Jesus as he goes through his passion is the image of a log that burns in the fire. And as it is consumed, as it slowly goes to nothing, it gives out light and heat. This is the way that Jesus allowed himself to be consumed by his passion, giving out love. It's as if Jesus is saying to his enemies, throw the worst that you have, the worst of your humanity, throw it all at me. I'm going to continue responding with love and with forgiveness. That's how I'm going to win you over. That's how I'm going to win this battle. Not by violence. Peter draws his sword and cuts off the ear of the servant. And Jesus castigates him. He says, that's not the way that's not what I'm all about. He chooses to ride into Jerusalem on a donkey instead of a horse, showing that he wanted to be a king of peace and not a king of war who would ride in on a horse. Jesus determines the narrative, a narrative that will only be understood by his disciples in the light of his resurrection. It was very few who could watch the way he died and see the love that he gave on and out and be convinced that he was the Son of God. But Jesus' death shows us something. It teaches us an important lesson, apart from just the fact that he loves us more than we can ever know. It shows us that if we want to take a stand against injustice, we have to do it with a bang and not with a whimper. We cannot take our stand against evil in the shadows. It must come to light. Otherwise, we will end up dying like Itai Zamara, and our lives will end with a question mark, in ambiguity, not really knowing what the meaning of our lives was. And so let us be encouraged today to take the stand that we must in order to be with Jesus in his passion, and to accept the love and redemption that he gives us so that we might follow him on the path to Calvary. God bless.